Well, there's a story told about three ministers who, in the kind of surrounding towns, knew each other, but they thought they would be good to get together and to just go on a kind of a 2 or 3 day retreat. And so they decided that they would rent this one cabin on this nice little lake, and the three of them would get together, and their time together was to be one of relaxing, and just maybe taking some walks, or because it was near a lake, maybe go fishing a little bit, but also a time of being able to study, maybe read the Bible and talk theology a little bit. That's what ministers do sometimes, not a lot of times when we get together. We talk too much of it anyway. And what the other thing was just to have time to get to know each other. And so the time was going so good with these three ministers. And one evening, towards the end of this retreat, they all felt so comfortable with one another that they decided that they could share some of those most, kind of deep down secrets that they had. Well, one minister, while they were sitting in front of the fireplace, said, "I need to confess to you that I have succumbed to that temptation of greed." Said, I can't get over, I just don't seem to have enough. I always want so much more. And that drive to want more has made me look at the offering plate. And I have to tell you, one time I took $20 out of the offering, and I am so ashamed of myself. Well, the others just sat there silently during that time. And the other minister who had heard it thought, well, I guess this is the time where I should confess. And he said, I need to confess that I have succumbed to that temptation of lust. And, of course, there was kind of really a dead silence there. And the others just looked at him, and he said, I have so many beautiful women in my congregation, and I have to say that there is one that has just seemed to attract me. And I know I shouldn't be, but I am attracted to her. Silence continued. Finally, the last minister thought to himself, thank God I'm not like them. Said, my only temptation is gossiping, and I can't wait to get home and tell everything. Thank God I'm not like them. Oh, man, I don't know if you've ever said that. We probably have never said those words like that. Thank God I'm not like them. But I think that there are probably times where perhaps we have, in our own subconscious way, said those words. And we have looked at others and comparing people, and probably looking at them and saying things like, thank God I am not like that person, as you look at their physical characteristics. Or you might say, thank God I'm not like that person who, when you see them in their financial distress, or thank God I'm not like those people who are standing in the welfare lines using, their cards. Thank God. We might not say it out loud, but it just seems to be human nature that we look at others and kind of compare ourselves to other people. And maybe we do say it in our own mind. Thank God I'm not like them. Well, Jesus tells us a parable to those people who had trusted in themselves and who held others with contempt. In other words, what they was saying is that they thought they were more of themselves than other people. And Jesus tells that parable. There's a Pharisee, a very righteous person, a lay person, that's like all of you and myself, This person would come to the temple. And as he said that he did everything He prayed twice a week. He gave 1/10 of his offering. He did fasting. He did what all the law would be. He did what was right. And he felt like he was so much better. You know, isn't that the case? There's some people, some people who feel like they're so much better because they go to church or that they do everything. Now, Jesus isn't saying that's wrong. Don't get this into it. Jesus is saying that, yes, it is right, that you should come and do all this stuff. But there are some people who might think it. I don't think any of you think that. I don't believe that. I don't, honestly. But I'll bet you there's a lot of people that aren't here that might think that of you. Who do you think they are? They're so much more holier than that. I know how you guys act afterwards. I've heard that by people. That's why people don't come to church. I don't want to be with you hypocrites. You who come to church and you think you're holier than thou, and then you go out there and you act the way you do, and that way. I've heard that. That's why people will stay away from the church, because they think we're better than, But that's not true. We don't think we're better than anyone else. It's their perception. And then, I've had some people be, like they're afraid to come to church. Isn't that silly? They're afraid to come to church because, guess what? Someone might look at them and judge them. How many times have you looked around in church and, take a look. Have you seen anyone that shouldn't be here? No. But we have that insecure feeling that especially if you haven't been around or been in church for a long time, you have that insecure feeling. Because we're on TV, no one wants to ever sit up front. You realize that? I'm just telling you that. You're up front here. It's because your daughter played, okay? But no, I've heard that. People don't want to sit up front. Why? Because the TV can zoom in here, and everyone at home can go and say, oh my goodness, what are they doing in church? Now, that's not a lot of people, but there are people like that, And that's what Jesus is talking about. People who try to look at others and judge them in some critical way, who think that they are better than the others, Jesus is saying with that Pharisee, he is righteous. He's doing the right thing. But what thing canceled everything out? He said, I'm glad I'm not like that one. I'm glad I'm not like that person. I'm glad I'm not a sinner, is what he was saying. Wow. Now, here's the tax collector. In that time of Jesus, the tax collectors were not very well loved. It's like the IRS. We don't like them either. But the tax collector wasn't very well loved because he seemed to cheat a little more. He took some money from the people for Rome, but also for himself. And he was deemed as one of the great sinners. But what is he doing? He's sitting there in the corner. He's kind of over in this corner here, not out in front, not in front of the TV looking at who I am. He's in the corner and he's just going, whoa, I am not even worthy. I am a sinner. I am a sinner. Jesus was trying to talk about is people who think so highly of themselves, put themselves up like my mom. I was talking with the kids. And it was interesting as I was doing this and thinking about the sermon, I thought about myself. Sometimes these sermons, and these readings convict me more than I think they ever convict you. But it sure did to me. Because I remember many years ago, I used to play softball. And I played a lot of softball when I graduated from college. And our team was pretty good. We were second in the state kind of thing, that kind of stuff. We were good. I was great. Yep. I thought I was so good because what I could do is I bat left-handed. And the shortstop would look at me and I'd look at him. And I'd say, he ain't good enough. And then I'd hit the ball to him. And probably about 8 out of 10 times, I was safe. I was good. I was fast. Oh, I was really good. And I let you guys know it too. Well, at that time when I was married, my wife let me know it. She said, "Why are you so egotistical?" "What? Egotistical? I'm just good." She said, "No one likes you." "Why not? I'm so good." I could never figure out why everyone, kind of made, they kind of liked me, but it was like, and I understood then. It was like my mom said, you think you're higher up, you're going to fall farther down. She said, "Why don't you try being humble sometime?" So next year, you know what I did next year in the season? I still did everything I did, which was pretty good. And then people would say, "Oh, how good you are." And then I'd say, "Oh, it was nothing. I just did it." Well, my wife had to tell me again, "Why can't you accept the praise?" "Well, what do you want? I'm thinking I'm pretty good, but if I do that, I'm egotistical, but, I can't understand it." It is hard. It is hard when we are given gifts, when we are good at something. It is hard to be humble. But I think that's what Jesus is saying. Not as much about being humble, but is thinking and trusting more in yourself than in who? God. We sometimes, are good. We sometimes think we are better than others. And we might be, and that's good. God gave you gifts. Celebrate them in a humble way. But celebrate that. But when you start to believe that you don't need anyone else or need God, especially God, that's when we get in trouble. We see that a lot of times with athletes. They get in trouble, right? They think they're pretty good. They're above the law. They're above this or above that or whatever it is, right? What Jesus is trying to say to you and to me is that the ones who are truly exalted, the ones who are justified, are the ones who admit that they are in need of God. See, the tax collector said that. "I need you. I need you. I have mercy on me. I am a sinner." The righteous person who did everything right was saying, "Thank God I'm not like that person." And is in essence saying, "I don't need you. I'm doing it on my own. I'm fasting. I'm doing all this. I'm making it all right." And the reality is, all of us are short. All of us are sinners. It's a pressure of being perfect, isn't it? God never asked you to be perfect. Do you realize that? God has never asked any of us to be perfect. God has asked us to be faithful and to use our gifts as God has given us. When we start to think that we have to be perfect, that drives us into a problem. When we think we are perfect, it makes us boasting. Humble yourself and be lifted up. If you want to be high up and you think you're without any need of help or anything, watch out. The fall's coming. So, remember, all of us who are here for one reason. We're sinners who are in need of God's mercy. And God gives it to us. And God loves us. In spite of what we have done, God loves each and every one of us. Not because we're so perfect or so good, but just because we're faithful.